We've all heard of incels, involuntary celibates, males who are possibly very dangerous and very ugly. But what about the female version? Femcels. Are they as dangerous? The incels hate women. The femcels hate men. But one group is treated completely differently to the other. Over the past few years, I've done a couple of videos on incels. Now, incels, if you don't know, they're involuntary celibate men, usually somewhat autistic. And I was really surprised to see what was going on inside that community. People like this guy, Elliot Rodger, who went on an unaliving spree. Even the word incel is banned from places like TikTok because it's so possibly dangerous. It's so flammable of a term. If young men come across it, people are worried that they will become incels and thus become violent. Femcels, though, you can search that to your heart's content. And I would argue that that's probably not good. But no one's really done the research on it. Are these female versions of incels who hate men as much as the incels hate women, are they as dangerous? Are they as bad? And should we be worried? This is a question that Channel 4 in the UK asked, and they actually did a bit of a documentary on it. So let's have a look. Are femcels dangerous, possibly violent? Should we be worried? Let's have a look.
This is one of the darkest corners of the internet, a space where women calling themselves femcels are posting extreme and sometimes violent content.
Now, isn't it strange? You don't hear about this. I mean, ever. In fact, when you search it, and you go onto different platforms and you search it, a lot, probably most of the content that comes back, the related content, be that videos, articles, stories, whatever, are people defending femcels, defending these female incels. And if they're not defending them, they suggest that they don't even exist in the first place. They say it's not possible to be a femcel. Or, possibly even worse, they celebrate it as a faction of feminism. Now, where in the feminist bylaws does it state that you should hate the opposite sex? Isn't feminism all just about being equal? Where in equality does hatred come from? It's very, very toxic. And for those pretending it doesn't even exist, wouldn't we want to know about a possibly dangerous group? I would.
There's jokes about killing all the men, having a plague, getting rid of them all, disgusting moids.
What's moids?
Like a derogatory term for men.
And yet it's not real? We call this shit out in men all the time, and rightfully so. Incels are fucking creeps. Should we not take these women seriously? Isn't that equality in and of itself? Like, this is just strange. And just because it comes from women, we ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist or celebrate it? That's fucked up. It is inherently sexist to take a threat from a man seriously and ignore it if it comes from a woman. Right?
If you start researching the word femcel, it pops up all over the internet. There's femcel book lists. There are femcel Spotify playlists, which is just loads of Lana Del Rey. The femcel hashtag on TikTok has nearly 1 billion views.
Which, if they're as violent as their male counterparts in this subculture, we should all be very worried. It should be very worrying, but no one's worried.
It feels pretty dark in here. There's like posts here saying, I think all men should start off in jail and prove their way out. It just feels so much broader than I'd first anticipated. The first step is to try and get into some of the femcel forums.
Okay, so we know this for certain. Incels exist because they can't get sex. They hate women because they aren't attractive. That's incels, that's the men. Maybe femcels can't get sex, can't attract men, but I highly doubt that. Because us guys, we're a very charitable bunch, and we will fuck anything. We will root anything. We don't care, okay? If we have enough beers, if we have enough fucking vodka sodas or a couple of wines, whatever you're fucking drinking, big dirty Howlerhead whiskey, let me tell you, you'll fuck anything. All right, that's not a great advertisement for Howlerhead, but it's any alcohol. We're very nice people is my point. But I feel like these femcels aren't so much about not experiencing the opposite sex that makes them full of hate, like the incels. It's because of their experiences with the opposite sex, which leads to their hatred. It's a small yet very important difference.
Chatting to a femcel, Al. So she says that she's been part of this community for 3 to 4 years, and she said she finds it very comforting to have the femcel term almost as a security blanket. I'll ask her what she means by that.
I really wonder what part mental illness plays in both femcel and incel logic and culture. I imagine that most of these people that we talk about in this video and previous videos are riddled with anxiety and depression and bipolar and all of these problems that they try and find a solution to through a religion that they become a part of, be that femcels, be that incels, or be that any other thing that welcomes people in to a group. And I feel like the more mentally ill we become as a society, which we are, the more people will find groups like these, the extremist groups. Much like we talk about terrorism and stuff like that. In religion, it's not so much the normal religious people that go and pray and they do their thing. It's the extremists. It's the same with vegans. Most people don't have a problem with normal vegan people who just eat fucking broccoli and just run around, running out of B12 on their way to the fucking farmer's market. It's the extremists, and it's the same here. The extremist groups, these are the factions that we have to worry about. And the more mentally ill we become, the more of us try and find them. Or maybe they find us. Who knows? The reporter in this video then met with a femcel that she met online.
You describe yourself as a femcel. What does that mean to you?
Femcel to me just means someone who has, gone through enough life experiences with men to sort of have this disdain for them. And it shouldn't be an insult to us. We are involuntary celibate. And we do hold these radicalized feminist views, so why not make a community out of it?
I guess this is what this all boils down to. Hatred for men that you have known or currently know. Men you've met in your life, they've wronged you, and now you've made the determination that you hate all men. This is also, conversely, what probably causes hatred of women. Misogyny, that type of thing. If you experience something bad from the opposite sex, you may write off that entire gender and hate them forever. If you get bit by a dog as a child, you're probably going to hate dogs for the rest of your life. If you get punched by a man or wronged by a man or hurt by a woman, you may very well write them off forever. Despise them, hate them. It's so deeply ingrained in you that you have a parasympathetic response when you see them. That's how hectic this shit is. It's ingrained in you, and it is not even slightly healthy. And it's running rife. It is becoming more and more popular in both genders. See how I said both? Meaning two.
3 years ago or so, you would have been able to go onto Reddit and find communities made purely just to post pictures of men, or to, dox men, or do anything like these to just basically ruin the lives of a man.
All of which, if men were doing, would be called out and stopped. Rightfully so. But because ladies are doing it, it's not even a reality, is it? We're sitting here pretending it doesn't happen. At this point in the video, the reporter then spoke to someone who wasn't a femcel but hangs out in femcel forums for some reason.
If I was to use the word femcel, what would that mean to you?
There are negative connotations with that word because it's so incel adjacent. And obviously incels are associated with extremism, violence, misogyny, that sort of thing.
I still think anyone with a genuine hate towards any group should be categorized in a similar way, but that's just me. Call me fucking crazy.
So for me, it's hard to escape from that negative meaning of the word.
Have you had any relationship experience?
I've never had a relationship, unfortunately. I've never had any sort of experience past a kiss.
Which is strange, right? Because, look at her. She isn't ugly. She's not a fucking glamour like me. Why would someone like her be in that situation? I don't know, other than she might be weird, she might be strange, she might have certain interests that people aren't about. Maybe she has 1,000 cats, who knows? Socially awkward, she's bad at conversation, a lady cock, she's got, who knows, maybe a lot of debt. There's a lot of reasons that somebody may not be attractive, even though she may not look completely ugly.
Because I'm 28, I feel like I'm going to be 60 odd, 70, and I'm just going to have lived my life alone. And it's scary, and it's depressing.
Oh, and this is what breeds hatred. Anyone who is lonely can become hateful. Not particularly her, but people like her. Loneliness breeds this shit like a disease. It brings you down, almost like you're being clawed down by this fucking sad, animal, and it brings you into this pit of despair with other people exactly like you. And this is what breeds these communities, exactly this.
The more women that I speak to in these spaces, the less worried I am about any kind of violence, and the more worried I am about the women themselves and their mental health. It feels like there's a real difference between the way femcel communities are dealing with feelings of isolation and loneliness and the way the incel communities are dealing with the same feelings.
Okay, interesting statement, but why? I think it's because men deal with feelings and problems a very different way to women. In the videos that I've done on incels in the past, horrific humour or attempts at humour by these mainly young men are constant. R-word jokes, R-A-P with another letter at the end. Jokes are unfortunately very commonplace. And oftentimes those type of jokes are bad jokes. I've done those type of jokes on stage and they're good jokes. But there's a difference, okay? I'm a professional comedian with 10 years experience, but the first one of those jokes I ever told, I had to take a risk. And I think that's important to remember, that some of these people are just saying edgy jokes for the sake of saying edgy jokes. They don't actually believe them. And I feel like a lot of people will see those jokes in those forums, and obviously a lot of humour gets lost in text, and they will see that as a genuine threat rather than an attempt at poor humour, perhaps. But is it fair, and here's a question for everyone in the comment section, is it fair to blame femcels? These ones that are in a real bad situation, who hate men and all this type of shit. Is it fair to blame that on men or mental health? And also blame incels on men, but not mental health? What a very strange conclusion everyone seems to have come up with. I feel genuinely that the issue is one in the same. It's loneliness, it's sadness, it's all this shit. And it's just expressed differently depending on which gender is feeling it. The original femcel in this video then showed them an incel chat room. Ooh, that she was in for some reason.
It's a kids' TV show, and it's just the caption of, you know, rape, 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 and that's supposed to be absolutely hilarious.
What's the darkest thing you've ever seen in one of those?
I've been sent videos of women being raped.
Yeah, so even though some of these men and boys might be fucking around with, you know, whatever they're saying, some aren't. And that is a problem, no doubt.
What I've seen so far, incels has the danger of spilling out into violent acts against other people. And it feels like the most violent things we're seeing in the femcel community are affecting femcels.
Maybe, but it's also affecting community and families. Just because these femcels aren't going out and committing mass murder, you're still affecting people. And it shouldn't be something that's just seen as not dangerous or doesn't exist. It should be called out for what it is, a very toxic way of living your life. Harm can come from other places, not just outward violence at a shopping centre or a school. Maybe it's not level with incel culture or violence, but it shouldn't be allowed to grow.
Men are taught it's kind of fine for you to lash out on other people, whereas women, well, constantly, well, it's your fault. I'm blaming you for it. Women will blame themselves for it. Like I said, these people ripped, molested, bullied, disowned by their own families, and society does teach these women, it's your fault.
Well, I don't know if that's true. If that's what she's being taught, then that's horrible. But I know as a man, that's definitely not what I was taught at all, to lash out. No, that's a terrible fucking lesson. And if you have been taught that, that's on your parents.
I do think there is potential for like a real violent act. I think we will get there. And the world will go, oh my god, how did she do that? And I actually don't think it proves anything. Like specifically like, oh my god, women can do this too. I wouldn't see it like that. I'd say it like, well, you let incels do it.
Okay, so even femcels themselves think that something bad could happen. But we can't even accept that it's a real thing. And are we really allowing incels to do these things? No, we don't want incels. No one wants fucking incels. They're the cyclists of the online forum world. Fuck off. They are shouted down by everyone, everywhere. And in closing for this video, there are a lot of sad people out there, and that's a real shame. But I don't think that this reporter made an accurate representation of the femcel community. I feel like there's a lot more hatred out there than she gave credit for. There's a lot of angry people, both male and female, and that's a real shame. But I feel mental illness plays a huge role in this. And until we really understand that and find ways to curb that, to help those people, we're always going to have these fringe lunatics that commit horrible things, be that a mass murder or ruining families or whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, work on yourself. If you can't find a mate, it's on you. Just because you're born ugly doesn't mean you can't get fit, make money, whatever. Work on yourself. Become a more interesting person. Learn more. Go and experience the world. Don't just give up and then be full of hate. That's ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Mid-X. To the au revoir. Bye-bye.